Thank you very much. Now, the second half of our evening is going to focus on the importance of bringing mindfulness and compassion to the public, making it available, making it known. And a vital part of this is bringing the theory, the science, and the clinical practice together in one, and having a holistic approach to mindfulness like we should have a holistic approach to our own health. We need to look at the links between our emotions and our health, what we feel and how we feel. Not just personally, but from a clinical perspective. It's known that stress has an impact on recovery rates. It's known that stress can cause strokes and heart attacks. This is known, which means it can be tackled. We are aiming to substantiate a really exciting area of research. And we need to validate the impact of non-toxic applications for well-being. I'd like to introduce a highly experienced specialist in mindfulness-based psychotherapy who has a master's in consciousness studies and transpersonal psychology. He's a practitioner from a tradition that has been using mindfulness for generations. A very dear friend of mine and everybody at The Flame, I'd like to welcome Dav Panesar.
When I started off, I had a black beard. This is what the stress has done to me. Okay, welcome and thank you for the introduction. We're going to approach in a new way. We're going to approach health outside the convention. Conventional medicine tends to see health or ill health to be the consequence of exposure to something, infection, stuff like this, genetics, or inflammation. These three contributors are seen to be the root cause of ill health. What we're going to present to you is something a little bit different. The root cause to your health isn't external, it's internal. It works from the inside out. And I will present to you with some information and some facts. I will refer to a sheet of paper simply because I can't remember everything. Age has got to me. When we look at emotions, generally we see it's something that's not quite discussed. It's not necessarily taught at universities, it's not taught at schools. We don't even know what's the difference between an emotion and a feeling. So if we begin with some definitions. To put things into context, let's first divide experience, knowledge, and belief. We have a flame here, we put our hand into the flame, we know what the experience of burning is. We have a scientist with a white coat and all the little bits, and they make the notes. The temperature, the skin, the reaction, the nervous reaction, the damage, all this stuff. This is knowledge. Experience, to put the hand in. Science is the knowledge. The scientist stands on the podium and they tell you, don't go near fire. You have the belief. Belief, knowledge, experience. So what we're going to share with you is these three things. First, my beautiful friends who shared their personal experience deep from the heart. It's a huge thing. It's a massive overcoming of a limitation that you set yourself to be able to come out and pour your heart out to strangers. And that goes to show what is possible once you get to grips with a very simple idea. Your reality, my reality, is created with my thoughts. If I am hungry, then the chances are I'm only going to see food shops when I go out. If I am angry, my world is going to appear a bit hostile. So our thoughts create our emotions. So let's just define the difference between an emotion and a feeling. Feeling is you walk into a cathedral, you see the beautiful tapestry and you go, ah! It's spontaneous. Emotion is sitting here and thinking, why did so-and-so do this to me? Is to bring something to your mind and play with it again and again and again, and it will create an emotional state. Emotions are created with your thinking. Simple. Thinking creates a response from your body, which is called an emotion, in order for you to deal with the circumstance. No emotion is bad, but there are healthy emotions and unhealthy emotions. So if I can just try and define this, whatever I say, it can be challenged and you question and answers. We are more than happy to open this dialogue. Our bodies are wired with some systems, like a circulatory system, but one of the emotional systems that we have is the threat response system, or what we call the flight-fight system. So when we feel that we are under threat, our body reacts. And our body reacts by creating lots and lots of glucose, our blood pressure goes up, our blood vessels get tighter, our adrenal glands start pumping adrenaline, and we get cortisol, some hormones that you can find in your blood the moment you get stressed. And it's normally good if the stress lasts for 5 minutes. But when we have stress, chronic stress, now we have Ebola. Tomorrow we're going to have another version of Super Ebola. And if you remember last year, it was some sort of flying pig we had. And the time before that, it was something to do with some chickens that were going to come and kill us. So what we notice is that we are bombarded with information which induces a stress response. So this stress response, so you wake up in the morning, 7 o'clock, and the guy on the radio is telling you how many have been killed, how many are going to be killed, and you're next. At 7:15, they use the same words in a different way. At 7:30, they use the same words, but with a bit of more music. So by the time you've got up, hour, 2 hours later, your mind has already been contaminated. Your mindset has already been created. And you carry that with you. And the rest of the day appears hostile. But what it's done to our biochemistry is that it keeps us in this toxic state. Lots of glucose in our body, lots of cortisol in our body, blood pressure increasing up. And then we go and say, by the way, I'm not feeling well now. I can't sleep. I feel a bit anxious. I feel a little bit apprehensive, and I feel emotionally sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. And this doctor says to you, oh, by the way, you're suffering from depression. Hold on a second. I gave you some symptoms. You've just classified them together as a depression. But no word as depression existed pre-1950s. It's a manufactured disease. Whether we accept it or not, it's a manufactured way of looking at symptoms which have a different cause. The treatment is treating a label, but not the root cause. The root cause is the fact that we are in a state of threat. Our mental state feels that we are under threat. And when we feel under threat, our physical body changes. And this change is the onset of disease. The high blood pressure will inevitably lead to some sort of cardiovascular disease. The glucose level will contribute towards diabetes. The cortisol will create inflammation inside you. That inflammation will become the cancer, will become the rest of your diseases, the blood clots, etc. But all it has been created with is your mental state. So when we go to a doctor and say, I am not feeling well and I'm not sleeping, rather than switching off this mental state, this threat-based state, they simply provide us with certain kinds of chemicals, which they affectionately call medicines, which then contribute, may get rid of one part of the symptom, but contribute towards adding yet more toxins into your blood system, into your physiology, changing your physiology, changing your biochemistry. So emotions can be seen in three ways, but let's look at it two ways. Healthy emotions, unhealthy emotions. Unhealthy emotions are emotional states which create a biological change in your body which is detrimental to your health. And these emotional states are what? Fear, anger. Give you a little statistic about anger. Anger normally lasts 3 to 5 minutes. You can normally play with it for many hours later, but actually the energy of anger is short-lived. But it will impact your immune system for 6 hours. 5 minutes of anger will impact your immunity for 6 hours. 5 hours, 6 hours, but several hours. Every time we get into a threat response, the cortisol brings your immunity down. So when we're freaking out about getting Ebola, we're making ourselves more vulnerable to getting it. Irrespective of whatever else, anything else. As soon as your immunity goes down, you're more susceptible. So you have these sets of emotions that we create through thinking, or sometimes through circumstances. So we're walking outside, someone jumps in front of us, we get a bit freaked out. It's a normal response. It should last a few minutes and we're out of it. But when it's there constant, it then becomes a toxic cocktail that's in our body. But then there is the other side. We talk about the threat response system, but there's another response system, which is called the soothing response system. When we feel safe, when we feel nurtured. Most of our colleagues spoke about one key theme, and that was how they treated themselves. Ask yourself this question. How do you speak to yourself? Do you give yourself a hard time? Do you overcritical about yourself? And if you had a little child, would you treat them the same way? And if you wouldn't, then why would you treat yourself like this? Compassion needs to begin with ourselves. Why compassion? Well, let me tell you the good news about compassion. Compassion has been shown to increase your immunity, lower your blood pressure, reduce stress, reduce depression, reduce anxiety, including many other things. If you were to go to that which has all knowledge, not God anymore, but Google, and were to type in, emotional physiology, the impact of emotions on your physiology, and you will find many research, much research, how gratitude lessens pain. 3 things that you, simple exercise. What 3 things are you grateful for today? Just 3 things. And if you had this exercise every day, you will find within 5 days, there's a sense of well-being. But I can ask you another set of exercise. Tell me 3 things that irritated you. And let's do this for a week. And let's see how we feel. Simple. The way we speak to ourselves, the way we cultivate these emotions has to be a learned experience. And that's hopefully what we're going to share with you today. What I'm presenting to you today is simply the connection between health and emotions, and how emotions are the catalysts of good health or bad health. Give you some examples. 31 heart patients, divided into two groups. 15 optimistic, 16 pessimistic. After 8.5 years, research I think done in Chicago, 15 of the 16 pessimistics had died. On the other side, 4. Another study, 170,000 people in 130 countries, followed for 25 years. Looked at childhood trauma connected to adult disease. And what did they find? Depending on the type of emotional trauma that you experienced, the disease complemented it. So if it was something that left you with anger, you have heart disease, heart attack, cardiovascular disease. If it was something to do with separation, this is a controversial claim I'm going to make here, but hey, what's new? There is evidence to suggest that type 1 diabetes, not type 2, type 1 diabetes, seems to be, in several cases, as a result of shock, separation, trauma. There's a relationship to that. In many traditions, it is understood that certain emotions are stored in certain organs. For example, liver stores anger. Pancreas stores a different emotion. So we will find that there are relationships between emotions and the type of diseases that we generate in our own body specific to those organs. And this evidence is available everywhere. But what it does give us is a very, very powerful tool. If emotions can determine the quality of my health, and thoughts are the catalyst to the emotion, then you have the power, through simple exercise of mindfulness, to become aware, first, what you are thinking. And secondly, as your practice matures, to have the choice to be able to play the same game again or remove your awareness from this thought and put it to your breath, thus breaking cycles of anger, fear, depression, rumination. Why does mindfulness work so well with depression? Because one of the key factors of depression is rumination. Thinking about something in the past, playing it over and over again where you are the victim. You do that to a child, they'll become depressed. You do that to yourself, you're going to become depressed. So by learning, simply learning what our mind is doing, we take the first step towards taking control of our health. All these individuals who spoke to you, and there are many others, hundreds, have gone from situations of 15, 16 years on drugs, on antidepressants, on a whole range of other therapies, to taking control of their own health. It's more sense of well-being. They enjoy life. Life has a purpose. Not because life is purposeful, but because their life is purpose, because their experience of life is considered to be something precious and something to learn from. So mindfulness at the first level allows us simply to watch our mind and become aware of our thoughts. But as this cultivates deeper, it gives us the control of the type of thoughts we want to entertain. So going back to 3 thoughts that you were grateful for today, or 3 things, just a very simple exercise. If you were to do nothing else as a result of this event or this evening, but just look at those 3 things every day, just 3 things that you are grateful for on that day, and just see what kind of wellness that promotes in you. And that ultimately is putting your hand in the fire, not listening to the doctors, not listening to the people telling you about what's happening, but you yourself taking that opportunity to put something through. The formula for a good life is quite simple. A still mind, cultivate positive emotions. This allows you to create relationships which give you meaning and a sense of purpose. But it has to begin with your mind, because only you have that ability to alter. Not me, not anyone else. But no one teaches you this. So one of the most important things about this event is that we wish, through the flame and everyone else that's involved in this, to make this available to everyone. It's your birthright not to be ill. You will notice that if you cut yourself, the body heals itself as long as you keep it clean. The body has an innate capacity to heal itself as long as you stop throwing poison into it. That's all it is. And all you need to learn, and all we need to learn, is to switch off from this threat cycle so the poison that's been going around inside finds a balance. And guess what? The body starts to heal itself. Emotionally first, psychologically, and ultimately physically. So you start saying, actually the pains aren't as bad as they used to be. They may be just as bad, but your attitude is different. So it's enabling the body's natural resilience to be allowed to take care of the body itself. Stop interfering. And the only way we interfere is with not knowing what we are thinking and who's polluting our minds. I've spoken about some aspects of positive emotions. Optimism, gratitude, compassion, simple things that we can include in our life on a daily basis. Or just looking at the sun, looking at the stars, looking at the beautiful autumn leaves, taking a moment out, appreciating life for what it is in this moment. Because the only thing that all of us share, the only truth, is that we have this moment. You have this moment, I have this moment. But remember, life has 3 phases. It begins, it remains, and then it dissolves. What happens after that is not our concern. But for what is important for all of us is to begin to appreciate first what we have, our own innate capacity to heal ourselves, to empower ourselves, but more importantly, also to ensure that we don't allow external pollution to just simply being thrown at us. If I was to feed you with poison, you may throw it out, you may vomit, and it will come out. But once this goes in here, some of the images, some of the barbarism, some of the unspeakable cruelty that we see today, when we see those images and they go in here, how do you take them out? How do you get rid of this pollution? Mindfulness is to mental health what brushing your teeth is to dental health. When was the last time you brushed your mind? I will leave you with that. Thank you very much.